Hi, I'm Matt Bevilacqua, Nutri-Grain IronMan, 3 times Molokai to Oahu Paddleboard winner, and you're on the Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
Phelps with 10 meters left. 3 minutes too good. The crowd roaring. 3 wickets down.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Listeners, welcome to another episode of the Physical Performance Show. I trust you've been having a great week and I hope you've been enjoying pursuing your physical best. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode featuring Coach Bob Larson, USA Track and Field Hall of Famer. Coach shared last week around all things training related, from how he has led his star charge at Meb Klevetsky to 4 Olympic Games, including a Boston Marathon title, a New York Marathon title, and of course that silver medal in the Athens Olympic Marathon to break a 28-year drought for the USA in winning Olympic marathon medals. So if you missed last week's episode 75 of the Physical Performance Show, be sure to jump back over and tune into Coach Bob Larson. Today's show is lovingly brought to you, as always, by Pogo Physio. We exist to help you perform at your physical best, and we do this through our industry-first, fixed-fee, unlimited access, 2, 6, and 12-week finish line programs. What's the finish line? Well, it's real simple. We want everyone who walks through the doors of Pogo to get that high-five moment where we tell you that we love you, but you've finished your rehabilitation. You're now back to your physical best. And we do this through state-of-the-art equipment such as Alta G anti-gravity treadmill running, Galileo whole body vibration therapy, clinical Pilates, hands-on treatment, including podiatry and remedial massage. For more information about the Finish Line programs and now Pogo Physio's wellness boosters, be sure to jump over to pogophysio.com.au and stay tuned for the Pogo Partners release coming to practices around the country near you. Massive thank you to you, the faithful listener. If it's your first time today joining us on the Physical Performance Show, a massive welcome. If it is your 76th time, then a massive welcome back. For those show listeners who have left the reviews, a hearty thank you very much. This week, I just wanted to do a quick thank you for Andre Running Obrovich, who rated the show as 5 stars and commented, "Awesome, love it, never miss this one. Brad, I love your podcast. As a 52-year-old that has had many injuries from 10 times marathons, the session with Peter Malliaris was a key session for me. This was highlighted in Sam Appleton's podcast, all about loading tendons and not just resting them. I am racing in the 70.3 Half Ironman World Championships in Chattanooga, which listeners has just been. So I'll be listening again to Sam and Tim and some other amazing athletes you have had on the show. Keep it coming, man. Love it." Andre, thank you very much for the glowing review. And listeners, if you'd like to leave a review, jump over to iTunes and rate away. 1 star or 5 stars, hopefully. Listeners, this week's episode is an absolute cracker. It's a great fun look into the life of another professional surf life-saving Ironman. This time, we're jumping into the water with Matt Bevilacqua, or Bevy as he is affectionately known. Now, interestingly, Bevy is another Matt Poole, current Nutri-Grain IronMan Series champions flatmate. So Matt Poole featured back on episode 57, just after the win that he had in the 2016-17 Nutri-Grain IronMan Series titles. And this week's Matt Bevilacqua, takes us off the back of a win that he just had in the Molokai to Oahu Paddleboard Championships, where he picked up his 3rd title. Uncannily, we've just recently also spoken with Jamie Mitchell, who set 10 or claimed 10 Molokai to Oahu titles. So Matt maybe has Jamie Mitchell firmly in his sights. But Matt shares around all things surf life-saving Ironman, breakthrough performances, hard training, fun sessions on the beach, and Matt's just got a great attitude towards his sport. So I think you're going to really enjoy it. He's another Tasmanian powerhouse. So let's jump in. Matt Bevilacqua. So, listeners, in the flesh, joining us here this morning, we've got Matt Bevilacqua, or Bevy, as he's affectionately known. So, Bevy, great to finally get you in on the hot seat for the podcast.
Thanks, Brad. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
So, mate, let's start with something a little bit fun, and that's one thing that scares Matt Bevilacqua.
Oh, great question. Look, honestly, the first thing that comes into my mind, the first year I was paddling for the race, Molokai to Oahu, I had a great white come up to me and narrowly missed my hand and came back for a few other passes over the space of a couple of minutes. So couldn't shake him for a bit, and probably that's the most terrified I've ever been, I reckon.
So put listeners in perspective, Matt. This is the Molokai to Oahu paddleboard race, which you've just returned from winning your third consecutive race on, so congratulations. There's obviously some serious predators out in that deep ocean. A great white literally came up and harassed you.
Yeah, Hell's Gate's around at Noosa. It lines up, it's a pretty deep ocean there. It drops out pretty quick. And yeah, a lot of the locals, they say there's a fair few sharks hanging out there, but I'd never paddled past there often, we were down at Molokai back then. And had a little real encounter.
Oh, so this is in training?
This is in training.
Sorry,
this is actually in training for the first attempt of the race in 2015. And I know you just said fear, and that's probably the thing that jumps to mind straight away.
And anyone that does know Noosa on the beautiful Sunshine Coast knows Hell's Gates, and you get that sense that there's a few things lurking around out there.
Exactly right, yeah.
So it disappeared and never took a bite?
No, it didn't take a bite. It came up out of the depths, and I sort of went up on my knees, luckily, and I was probably at the 3-hour mark and my legs were dead, so I wasn't coming off my knees. I wanted to stay up high and cruise back past a couple of times, just checking me out, and I just kept paddling, didn't want to stop moving. And that's the ocean, I suppose. But And in the Molokai race, I read there that you thanked some of your crew, your support this year, 2017, your third consecutive victory. And one of the comments on your captions on Instagram was, dodging sharks, and there's obviously sharks around in that race too, right? Oh yeah, absolutely. That's one of the deepest oceans in the world across there, that channel, and there's some big fellas lying around, I reckon. But I haven't actually seen one during the race, but those whoever you've got on your boat needs bob in the water for a while before you sort of cruise past and get your drink bottle off them. So they're literally not moving. They're just sitting there, in the water at eye level on the water, so they can't see anything. And I reckon it'd be pretty terrifying.
And Matt, let's go through your origin story, your genesis story. Anyone that knows your career now sees you in the Nutri-Grain IronMan Series. One of the point people, the point athletes that's podium in and often at the front of the race. But Matt, it didn't always start that way, did it? I mean, you had an affinity for the surf in Tasmania. Take us through your early junior days and a bit of this story.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough, my parents brought me down to Clifton Beach Surf Club, which is the southernmost surf club in Australia, probably the world really. I was sort of brought up pretty rough. It was pretty cold, and I just love getting in the ocean, so we toughed it out. I had a couple of good mates down there, luckily. Not always numbers are strong down there, but for my year it was, and we loved it. We're down there, and it's pretty isolated surf clubs down there. They're not like the Gold Coast. They're a long drive down there, but we stayed down there on the weekends, and I just developed that love for the sport, I think, and to this day I think it's probably why I'm sort of getting the results I am. And I just kept going, and I eventually got to the end of year 12, and I'd been racing, and no talent. I'd go to Aussies and Tan and Linden and be winning, and I wouldn't be getting out of the heat. So there was no natural talent there or anything. It was just a love for it, and so I moved to the sunny coast.
So where did that love initially start? Like, were you an awestruck, young teenager watching the series on TV, the Nutri-Grain series, the Kellogg's, or how did it start?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to sit down, on the couch on the weekends and watch a pink Matt Poole run around, and Shannon and all those guys, Kai Hurst. They were massive idols as well. But I think I just had a love for paddling and swimming and being in the ocean and surfing and running, pushing my body to the limit. Like, even though I wasn't racing and probably competing to the best in Australia, I was pushing myself and always striving to improve myself. In the pool I wasn't that quick, like pool swimmers were smoking me, but I always used to think, can I go a little bit quicker? So I think it was a mixture of things. It was a mixture of a love for the sport, pushing myself, and a love for those Ironman at the top, living the life on the Gold Coast and things like that. So yeah, that was three motivating factors.
They were the ingredients, Matt.
Yeah.
And that pushing yourself, the love for that, I mean, you can't be a successful endurance athlete, or athlete in general, I don't think, unless you've got that innate drive to see what you've actually got in terms of performance abilities. Was that in your bloodline? Was there anyone in your family is there a history from your father or your siblings, anyone else doing that, or were you the sort of the lone athlete of the family?
No, that's a great point, and I've sort of seen that a lot coming through now. Is a lot of the younger kids coming through, you see who's got that innate drive and who sort of doesn't. But I actually, my pop coached under John Coleman at Essendon, and he was played a few games of AFL for Carlton. So yeah, I wasn't the first in the family, but my dad as well is very athletic, and both mum and dad were very athletic. So yeah, I think I got a bit from them, and I'm definitely not the first in the family.
Who'd you get more athletic ability from, mum or dad?
Yeah, hope they're not listening. I won't answer that.
Yeah, no, smart son. Mate, talking about your dad, Tim, I believe your father's name is. Tim, in researching for the day, was quoted as saying this: I remember clearly thinking that day, this is a day we'll talk about, Matt really loves the sport so much. What a shame he's not one of these good ones. Your father said. He now laughs in retrospect at how ridiculous that thought was. But can you remember the race that your dad was referring to there? Or do you want me to unearth a little bit more of my research?
Yeah, there was a lot of those races because I used to make the state team for Tasmania. I missed it out a couple of years, which is saying something. I used to come up to the mainland and get smoked pretty badly. I'd be sort of almost getting lapped by, guys like Tannen or Jacko Maynard, guys at my age in Queensland. And, it was pretty sad from his perspective, I reckon, just to watch me train so hard and then just come last by so far and not really even be competing. But, I just had a love for it. And, he both mum and dad put in a lot of sacrifice, as a lot of parents do, and especially this sport, this nightmare of a sport with the hours you put in. I just had a love for it, and I think they saw it too, so they're like, why not? Well, he's enjoying it, so we'll keep doing it. It wasn't results-based, but yeah, I think that's the reason why he's quoted. He was just like, what a shame it is, but why stop if you're having fun? But
at that point, I mean, you were 40 kilos wringing wet, so you were obviously quite you weren't the Matt Bevilacqua built that you are now, and you would have been coming up against some, often at times bigger kids in the junior ranks.
Yeah, I think those guys, like I mentioned before, they were like men before they were 12. I took a lot longer. I suppose that's everyone's. Everyone grows a bit differently, and by the time I was sort of 16, I was still pretty small. Yep. It wasn't until I sort of left, actually. Even there's a few photos when I first moved in with Paulie and Josh. I was still tiny. I had no muscle yet, and I just had to be patient, keep working hard, like a lot of people do. A lot of people I see now, they're training hard, they're not getting the results, but you can sort of just tell. You've just got to keep that work ethic, keep staying humble, and work hard, and eventually they'll come. You grow a bit.
So back then, could you ever imagine you living the life you now live as a Nutri-Grain IronMan full-time athlete?
No, never. I had a lot of different dreams back then. I was actually a bit of a school nerd. I love studying hard, and I was going to do medicine. Actually, I came up my first year with Paulie and Josh, and that was my year to study UMAT and get the medicine's admissions test done and study med back home because I got a good score. So yeah, I studied that, smashed that. But after a year of training with the boys and enjoying this lifestyle that I didn't really, like you said, I didn't really think I could do. I was like, I'll stay.
So, and you mentioned Josh and Pooley then. For listeners, that's referring to Matt Poole and also Josh Minogue, who Josh hasn't been on the program yet.
Get him on.
Yeah, we'll have to get Josh on if you're listening, Minogue. Pooley back in, I think, it was a few episodes ago now, but obviously Matt's featured on the program, so go back, listeners, and have a listen to Matt Poole's. But Bevy, you went to so you moved from Tasmania, and just on the Tasmania dynamic, I mean, any international listeners will probably have heard of Tasmania. It sits at the bottom of Australia. There's an incredible sporting legacy that's come out of such a small landmass, really. I mean, Richie Port, Jake Burwell, you could just this endless list, right, of this talent, sporting talent yourself. I think back to my junior triathlon days. Craig Walton, was a Tassie byproduct. What do you think is the driver for such a small population to create such sporting talent?
Yeah, very good point. And I do speak to those guys a lot. I think sort of you get a bit of a bond coming back from Tassie. I think we sort of stick together a bit. But I don't know. I think maybe because it's such a small place and it's, ignored a bit, you sort of want to prove yourself and, represent your state. And there is that state pride and that feeling of state teams that go away. They really do compete for their state. We're the island state. We're not really part of, Australia and things like that. I reckon that's probably a factor, as well as it's tough down there. Training's a nightmare. You come up to the Gold Coast or, if some kids make a move like me, there's no hard days out here. It can be as cold as hell in winter, or training for Molokai and in darkness, it's nowhere near as bad as down there. So I think that's probably a factor as well. Is you don't know what, how bad it can get. Yeah. So we do.
So when you talk about how bad it can get, give me an example of a session that sticks in your head from down in your formative years in Tasmania.
Oh, mate, that's what jumps to mind is training in the canals. We couldn't go in the surf in winter because you couldn't get any sort of wet from the water. The water's the thing that doesn't warm up. So even the air temp, it could get all right. Get your single digits up to almost 10 degrees, but the water will stay freezing. It won't get above 16 in summer. So, I remember just being on the ski and just that air chill from the water as well, and just having hands that were just swollen and red and just burning pain through the whole session, that wouldn't even warm up. So, and a lot of the times we'd leave our skis out in the grass ready to pick them up in the afternoon, and they'd still have ice on them, from the night before, and get the hose out and ice off the car as well as the skis and boards and paddles and get on the water. And it wasn't a fun time, but I suppose that's maybe what I am today.
And have you found that you've been on the Gold Coast, where we're recording this at the moment, you've been on the coast for several years now. Have you found, though, that your threshold for tough ship, if you like, has slid down a little bit just because it's just the environment you're now in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was walking in the water yesterday. We've had a bit of a northerly at the moment, and hasn't been overly warm with those westerly winds. It's freezing. I'm weak as now. Yeah, and a few of the kids come up from Tassie and they're still in their dickies running around, or we go down and take a clinic down there and they're running around in dickies, and that's not happening anymore.
I just think it's fascinating, but at least you got that perspective to reflect back on in terms of what true tough is, right? So Matt, you went to the Sunshine Coast for a period of time and trained with Michael King, and it was a pretty talent-laden squad at that stage. What was that? How old were you chronologically first at that stage?
19. Just turned 19.
So 19, finished school. What was that like, jumping in with some of your, at that stage, Ironman idols who are now peers?
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the reasons why I stayed, is because I sort of had that goal of doing UMAT, going back and doing medicine, but just these boys were just such awesome guys, and the lifestyle, and Kingy sort of was such a awesome guiding figure, and he was like a father up there for all of us, really, because we were all left our families, whether they were in Sydney or Melbourne or Tassie, and we just trained so hard together. I think there'll never be a squad like it again in the sport, I don't reckon. And in that, I was lucky. If I didn't have that at the time, I probably wouldn't have got the work ethic that I have now, and wouldn't have had the goals that I wanted to achieve. And I'm still very thankful that I got to have those years with Kingy and those guys. I think everyone was, even Kingy looks back on it now and goes, they were some good years. So very lucky, yeah.
What was one thing you learnt through those years other than work ethic, being around a squad of high performance like that?
Work ethic, yeah, that's one. That's probably the biggest one. But also is having high caliber athletes around you is such a massive part of, becoming a good athlete. Is you can't always do it by yourself, no matter how hard your work ethic, how good your work ethic is. And we just pushed each other like you wouldn't believe. There was blow-ups on the beach. People cutting corners. You couldn't cut a meter because we were so close to each other. That meant a mile. So yeah, it was tough going, but I think I appreciate having good athletes around me now.
And mate, can you share any of these blow-ups, any stories of a blow-up?
Kendrick and Pooley have a good story. I'll tell you that one.
So you don't want to elaborate?
No, we'll leave that one for the boys.
We'll leave that for Kendrick, mate.
Yeah.
All right. So Matt, you were the first Tasmanian Ironman to qualify for the Nutri-Grain Series. That's pretty cool because there's been some really rich surf history from Tassie. But what year was that? Your first qualification year was what season?
Oh, that's a good question. So this was my fourth year. It was 2016. So I think 2013 was my first. 2013-14 was that first summer. I qualified for the series, which at the time was like, I've made it, that's it. I'm done. That's such a cool thing to do. And I never believed wasn't one of my biggest dreams when I first left. But that was the first year.
And can you remember that first race, pulling on the gear with Bevilacqua or Bevy on the back of the singlet?
Mate, I'll never forget that first race. It was probably one of the biggest swells we've ever had, and that was my first ever Nutri-Grain race. Was at Smith's Beach, and there was no area. We didn't get any run-out songs. It wasn't like all my thoughts and
all your dreams.
Yeah, exactly. And we delayed start because we didn't think we were even going to start, and oh God, it was massive. Makes me feel a bit sick still.
This is in WA.
Yeah, it's down in Margaret River in WA. It's pretty notorious for some big swells. And ski start, and I was straight out and sweet next to Shannon. It was amazing. I'll never forget that feeling. But that was a good summer.
And so your first race, big swell, not the crowd because it was remote. It was an isolated event. And how'd you go the first race?
I ended up getting seventh. Which I was pretty happy with considering the conditions.
Top 10 on your first race.
Yeah.
And then that was your first full season. By the end of that season, where were you sitting? I think ninth?
I ended up, we finished with another huge round at Coolum, and I was sort of racing to re-qualify and won the QS event the day before, and then found myself on the podium with Shannon and Kai for my last race in the first series, which is just, mind-numbing. It was sort of topped off for just a whirlwind sort of 6 months where, I'd qualified, which was just be-all, end-all kind of thing, and then all of a sudden I was on the podium and I was thinking, where am I going with this? Yeah.
And so what was your confidence doing at that point? Obviously you started the series questioning yourself, as would be natural. What happened through the series? You hit some highs and lows and then finished on a podium. So what was your thought process like across that series that year?
Oh, absolutely. It's crazy, and I think a lot of athletes get that initial boost or get some crazy result that they go, all right, I'm away here. And I came crashing down for sure. I got second last in one of those rounds, I think. And, like I said, it comes back to having those athletes around you. Ali's there going, Bevy, my first year I did this. Pooley's there. Josh, all of them are saying they've had similar experiences. And then you have a guy like Kingy coaching or whoever good a coach you've got, just telling you to go back to your processes. Look at what exactly went wrong rather than the result, and just little things like that. I was very lucky to have around me, and I fixed it and had a positive mindset regardless of result, and obviously flows on to improve again. So yeah.
And mate, that then took you into the next year's series, which you would have automatically qualified for, I presume, with those results. And what was your second iteration like in the series in terms of performances? Did you improve, or did you find that you didn't? Or
every year's been very different. So the second year I came out, got I think 2 lasts. So I'd had this crazy year, and I don't know. I think I changed my training a little bit. I was like, I need to be bigger and stronger. thinking all these crazy thoughts. Whereas you just need to go back to your processes, and that's what Kingy said after those first 2 horrible results. He said you need to, go back to what you know. Like, just train hard, do the basics right and do them well, and you'll come back. And sure enough, I gradually got back and ended up on the podium again, and I brought that into the next year and didn't make those same mistakes again. And I suppose that's just what being an athlete is. It's just pushing yourself to the limit, watching yourself fail, and making sure you don't brood on it and fix that and keep going. And all of a sudden, you'll just keep climbing that ladder.
And I think confidence is such a funny thing, isn't it? Would you agree, Matt, that you're only as confident really as your last result? And then when you haven't got that for whatever reason, surf's obviously a mixed bag. You really do look on the external validation at that point, the coach, your fellow peers, your athletes, your training mates, to sort of buoy you up, pump up your tyres and get your headspace in the right space.
Yeah, absolutely. You need that team around you, yeah, for sure. But you also need that mental strength to give yourself your own confidence. You've got to have that self-belief, and that's what I lacked a lot. There was that self-belief, that real drive that I could achieve, because I was just so shocked all the time. It shouldn't have happened. I still work to this day to have that self-belief, and yeah, when you don't have it, that's what I had to rely on. And that's why I say I'm so lucky, because I didn't have that self-belief. I needed to lean on my coach, my mates, my friends, my family, things like that. So when you don't have it, make sure you get it out of those other guys.
Yes, and no man wants to be an island and isolated, particularly in sport. Matt, your first Nutri-Grain win, I believe, was Coolum 2015-16, one of the opening round, I think. Is that right? Round 1 or round 2? The first round win?
2 seconds at Coolum, and then I won the third one at Newcastle.
Yeah. So that was the 2015-16 series or iteration. I was on the beach at Coolum. I remember you were hot on Shannon's tail there, Shannon Eckstein, previous guest of the podcast, and that must have done something for your confidence that year, going into a fresh series, being right at the front. Yeah,
definitely, and that was, like I said, what I learnt from that horrible start year where I wasn't doing the right things, and yeah, that was the third year, and I just did all the right things, did them well. I rocked up really fit, and had to fight with Shannon for a couple of rounds and couldn't get him, but yeah, that's a confidence boost. That's results giving you confidence, and that's easy to take hold of. So I walked into that third round thinking, I was unstoppable kind of thing. And even though I probably thought I was more than I was, so that can always help, and it did. So I took a bit of a different line to Shannon and ended up getting a win in that third round, which was good. But then again, you're sky high, and I'd never dealt with that kind of thing again, and the next round wasn't such a good one, and you learn again.
What was going through your head as you crossed the line for your first victory, though, Matt? It had been, years of toil, years of sacrifice, challenge. What was the first thought? Your parents were there? Was Dad there, Mum there?
Yeah, actually, I had a bit of time. I went over and high-fived Dad and stuff, which is pretty cool, because, you think back to what had happened back home, and those 5 o'clock mornings washing ice off the windscreen of the van before driving 40 minutes to swimming, and he was just coming back from, he's a radiographer at work. He used to get an hour's sleep. This is the same for Mum, really. And like a lot of those sacrifices, thousands of Ks from home, and then to have that at Newcastle, being able to high-five him before the finish line, it's something I'll never forget at all, but even if I win another one.
What was your dad's first words to you? What were they, I should say?
I can't remember. It would have been something very subtle. He doesn't really get too excited, kind of thing. He keeps it under wraps, I think. But he would have just been like, very cool, nicely done, or something. Yeah.
What about Mum?
She would have been bawling. Yeah, she would have been bawling for sure. Yeah, she was. She wasn't actually there for that round win, but she's been there for mostly everything else. But she would have just been bowling, I reckon.
And then, Matt, in terms of overall stand-ins in the series, your best finish total series-wise has been podium. How many times have you podium?
It was that year, overall, that was third, which is the best.
15, 16.
Yeah.
And then obviously that took us into 16, 17, which was a different round, different year or different series in the life of the series, and that was the 3 days, 3 rounds that presented a bunch of challenges for every athlete down on the beach at Cronulla this year. So what was that like for you, this year's series? It was, if you blinked you missed it, right? 3 races, 3 days.
Yeah, it was. That was a tough weekend for sure. I actually I think that was the best year I've put together. So there's just that mindset that I have for 4 years, and I think that was probably the best racing I'd ever done, but it was only my second best result, or maybe even third best overall, because I finished 6th overall. I I just didn't make mistakes. I made my decisions and I didn't make the mistakes. It's just they didn't work out. It was a lot of like crazy racing that event, and I just think the boys turned up to race that day. Like Pooley was unstoppable, and Shannon as well. Like, still getting injured, but he was there to party, and everyone was. And I think it shows the depth of talent coming through at the moment for sure. So looking forward to it this year. But yeah, that was a whirlwind weekend, and hopefully we'll spread it out a bit this summer.
Well, we'll wait and see. And, mate, obviously it was special for you with your flatmate, Matt Poole, the other Matt, taking his debut series. It was like a fairy tale sporting dynamic at the end. Matt Poole chasing his first, Shannon chasing his 10th. I mean, you couldn't write a better script down to the last sprint. I remember you were on the beach right then and there, when Pooley finished and you were straight over there. So what was that moment like for you guys?
Yeah, that was very cool. I was pretty lucky to be there, and I've been pretty lucky to watch Pooley go through his last 6 years or whatever it's been since I moved up. And yeah, he's just so driven, and I see it, behind the scenes as well, of all the little things that he does, to try and be that little bit better. And that's probably why I've gotten a lot better as well, watching him, watching Josh, and just watching him fight and then come down to a fairy tale. It goes to show just the depth of the sport at the moment. And when you see those fights, like in the surfing or whatever, there's a lot of top dudes trying to fight that. It doesn't happen by accident. That's the product of the dudes fighting for 15th, 14th, all the way pushing first and second to have a fight like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was stoked, and to see Pooley so happy after 6 years of grinding, and he's had his wins along the way, but yeah, that's pretty amazing to watch.
Inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I want to get one so bad.
Come on. So, Matt, let's do a performance round. This is a bit of a threshold session with some questions around some interesting things. What's the training session you most dislike?
Oh, good question. Well, I think for I've got a lot of different preps for the gold, for Molokai, for the Nutri-Grain Series. I think the worst would be Monday afternoons training for Molokai on the board. So that you could get up to about 3 hours on the canal, just paddling past houses in the flat water for hours and hours, and nothing going on apart from maybe some beats in your ears. That's about it. Yeah, that's a bit of a grind.
Talking about paddling past houses, quick side note here. You must have seen some funny things paddling past houses.
No, I actually haven't. No, I've seen a few things in some skyscrapers from the beach, but nothing too dodgy. I think I'm blacked out most of the time. I'm in my happy place.
You're in your zone.
Yep.
What's the training session you most love?
Good question. In and out through the surf. IronMan's in some beautiful surf, with all the boys there and really toughing it out, just basically like racing, but in tricky surf, and people darting left, right, scooting out everywhere using knowledge of the ocean, and that's a good session, out in front of the car in the sun.
Pre-race meal, Matt. What's your routine there?
Nothing special. I just eggs, avo, bacon. I go sit down and have a coffee and sort of relax. That's when I race my best, is when I'm relaxed, doing the same thing I do every morning here. So, yeah, nothing too amazing.
Any discipline around how early, how far before the race or the event that you'll have your breakfast?
Yeah, definitely over an hour. Yeah, I don't like to eat, or running basically. I could probably eat before ski or board, that's fine. But yeah, for an IronMan series, I can't eat sort of inside an hour really. Have a nice big feed 2 hours before is perfect, and yeah.
Nice big feed for the Tasmanian boy.
Yeah.
Bedtime, morning time, what's your routine like there?
Very strict. I'm in bed at 8:30 and up at 5 for swimming every morning. And then for racing, I try and do the same thing. I'm not in bed too early. If I'm getting up at 7, I won't be in bed at 8:30 because that's overslept, and I'll be sort of a bit drowsy kind of thing from oversleeping. And then so 8 hours, pretty much every night.
And Matt, who's the athlete? Always a fun question that you most admire, and why?
Good question. I think about that one a lot. I've always loved Mick Fanning. I've followed him since he sort of started, and just watched all his hurdles kind of thing. And thought of them as my own. You know, coming from Tassie, just metaphorically kind of linked them, and just to watch him fight, you know, no matter what, and still get results. That's I sort of idolise him. And Joe Watson as well, the captain of Essendon, that went through all that sort of the drug saga, but before that he wasn't a naturally talented athlete. He had to work very hard to be where he was, and guys like that you can sort of can't get the word, but relate to.
Yeah, yep, cool. Who's the toughest competitor you've ever raced, Bevy, and why? Toughest competitor?
It'd have to be either Shannon or Pooley. I think Shannon just doesn't make mistakes. Everyone says that, but it's just incredible how he doesn't. You know, no matter how big the swell is or how unique the conditions are, he's just clinical and calm and collected the whole time, which I've tried to sort of emulate and try and learn from. And Pooley, just the aggression and the fierceness of how he races, you know, like, not to say that he makes mistakes, but just, you know, side by side, he's just that fierce competitor, a bit like, you know, Nadal kind of thing compared to Federer. It's just that, how can you split them? They're both just good at what they do.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? It's a nice comparison you've drawn. Is there a mantra, Matt, that you use when you race or compete? Anything that's consistent self-talk that you might have going through your head on the start line or the night before?
Nothing specific, no. It's more just staying relaxed. Ever since I've sort of started getting these results, I was too excited and like wasn't thinking straight, and I've always had to be brought back by coaches to the process and just what I have to do rather than get it overcome with excitement, and as well as sort of staying humble, you know, when you're at the front, or like if you're sort of leading with the crew, just stay calm. Like it all relates back to that, I think, is probably the main message. Just chill out.
Rather than adrenaline.
Go enjoy that at the end.
Yeah. Best recovery tip, Bevy? I mean, you spend how many hours a week training on average? 20?
20, yep, plus.
Best recovery tip, what have you found that to be?
I love my warm downs. Never miss a warm down, no matter how cold it is or, you know, how terrible the session was. I'll always make sure I warm down, and every sort of spare moment I get, you know, I'm still full-time studying. It's pretty hard, but I'm stretching and I'm just doing little things, you know. I don't think it's overly complex. I don't think you have to go into too much sort of thought about it, but you do those little things right, same as racing. You do them right and don't have to come see you too much.
And on that, your worst injury to date in your career?
I've actually been so lucky, Brad. I haven't really had to go see anyone because I've done those little things right. I broke my hand once. That was horrible. And that sort of kept me out of the water for a bit. But honestly, shin splints first year with Kingy for maybe a few weeks, and I had a nice, good bursitis that most board paddlers get when they first start that I think must have just calloused up. I've never had it again. But, that kept me off my knees for a while. That was a burning, horrible pain.
The knee?
Yeah, just on the bursitis and bursting on the knee, and that's about it. Yeah.
How'd you break your hand?
I was just playing with a mate, actually. That was just when I was younger, but I only say that because I wasn't that good back then. I hadn't even won races in Tassie. I was getting smoked, and kept me out of water for 4 weeks, and I remember that was a turning point for me, and I won a state title. I won my first ever race, really, in Tassie, which doesn't really count, but because I'd been out of the water, I was so motivated. That was sort of the start, I reckon.
Yeah, that's cool. Matt, what's one word you would use to describe your racing style? One word.
Oh, calculated, I reckon. Yeah, I think, you know, obviously that's what Shannon sort of does, but me, I've had to overthink things coming from Tassie. I didn't have those skills of growing up on the Gold Coast. I've had to think about everything so much more and learn from every single mistake a lot quicker and efficiently to catch up, because I was always behind the 8-ball kind of thing, yeah.
So you're a smart racer. How would you describe being in the zone?
There's been a few moments when, you know, we've been doing big sort of 45-minute M shapes when you really have to be in that zone to be at the front, and if you're not, you're going to drop off because it's just a pain like you wouldn't imagine. And I don't know how to describe it. It's just being in flow, and it's that breath of you know, making every single skill that you execute just easy and efficient, and going out through a 6-foot swell at the 30-minute mark of an M shape next to Shannon or Ali or Pulley, like guys like that. When you're in flow, when you're in the zone, because it's just easy and it comes naturally and your head's clear. You're like, oh, I'll dart left or I'll dart right, or things like that. Those weird decisions come easily. Yeah,
almost like you've got an ability beyond what you've got, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
When was the last time you were in that zone, Matt?
I was dipping in and out. I remember the last M-shaped round of the endurance round of the series just gone. I reckon I was dipping in and out of it, and I couldn't quite stay there. That was one horribly painful round. I think if you ask anyone in that race, at low tide at Cronulla in those tricky conditions, that was horribly painful. But yeah, there was times there when I was like, I'm sweet here, I'm all good. And then, I just couldn't quite stay there, hence no podium.
Trying to stay in the zone, like what are you practically trying to will yourself to stay in it? I mean, do you think you can will yourself to stay in it, or is it just those days that just sort of click?
I think you can will yourself to stay into it. I think that's what, like I was saying about Pulley, that's what Pulley can do well. More, I was thinking calculated, like when are those sets coming, when did the last one come, there was huge low tide, so you're just thinking about when the whole ocean's dragging out, like will I have to wade extra far this next transition because they were horrible, things like that. I'm always thinking rather than sort of willing myself with that self-belief. It's more just like, what can I actually think about that'll make the next and learn from that what's just happened to make the next few laps easier or something like that.
Yeah, so you're definitely thinking athlete. Mate, what's the hardest session you've ever done in your life? Hardest session in your life?
Oh, training session. That's a good one. I think I'd have to go back to the Kingy days, just when I wasn't quite as fit as I am now, and trying to chase down the boys like Pooley and Ali when they're flying, and I was barely moved up. It was just some big Ironman sessions with Kingy, just reps of short Ironman races, probably 10 of them, and just vomiting at the end, like just in complete pain. And we used to have a trial back then as well for this Kellogg series where you'd have run transitions of like 1 kilometre in the soft sand. King used to replicate them pretty well, so we'd run a K in the soft sand and then dive in for a swim, and that wasn't fun.
So, Matt, the funniest, last question, the performance round, the funniest thing you've ever seen, training or racing? We've spoken about the canals and there wasn't anything there. What's the funniest thing you've ever seen, Bevy?
See some weird stuff being out in the ocean so much. I've seen some girls get flipped off boards by whales. That's pretty funny.
Go there. That's
we were just coming in, and I just saw this commotion up in front, all the girls screaming and some chick off her board, and I was sort of like, what's going on here? And just this big whale had come up under her, and she got her board pretty banged up actually. It was destroyed, and she came off, and it was just pretty funny. I don't know, there's so many things, I've seen heaps of whales come way too close and people sort of freak out, as you do obviously. Stingrays jumping around everywhere, you think they're going to hit you. Flying fish in Hawaii, they're a nightmare. They can slap you in the face really bad. Pulley must be a magnet for him. He gets hit all the time. Apart from that, I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Matt, let's just talk about Molokai for a moment. Molokai, where was the seed planted on that?
Look, I think watching Pulley do it, probably. I think that's where I first heard of it, or maybe even Jamie towards the end of his decade of dominance. But it's just been a love of mine is catching waves and the love of the ocean. And that's what we used to do back home, is a lot of long paddles, with the wind or against it, because we couldn't go in the surf. It was way too cold to actually come off your ski. Like, that'd be session over. If you got all your wetties and stuff wet, you wouldn't be able to function. You basically wouldn't warm up again. So hypothermic. So we just did long paddles, and which was fun, and got fit. We used to do fartlek training within them, but that got us fit for the summer, and I think I just kept that love until I could do Molokai.
And that first victory must have been pretty special, but your third, was that even more special?
Actually, I think the second was the most special. The first, I sort of didn't expect it. It was too numbing to sort of enjoy, and it was a horrible race, that one. It was 5.5 hours. There was no wind and not overly enjoyable. I was very sick for a long time, actually, because it was so tough and my body wasn't ready for it. But the second one was fast. I broke the world record, and my whole family was there this time and got to enjoy it with them in Hawaii, which was amazing. And I'd never been overseas with them, let alone, sort of doing that kind of thing. And it was 2 from 2, I'd only done the 2, and I was pretty emotional after that one, I think.
That's cool. Matt, study. You mentioned you're studying. What are you studying?
So I'm just about to go to school, actually. I'm studying high school teaching and maths and PE. Yeah, so I sort of just love doing that. It gives me something to fall back on once my career is finished, but also gives me a little escape, like going and learning new things and, hanging out with kids and stuff. It brings you back down to ground a bit. And, while I'm, currently talking with Nutri-Grain about a huge project we're trying to do very soon, I get to go into school and just, go through the Pythagoras theorem on the board and stuff. And it brings me back to earth a bit, and I get to sort of, chill. And like I said, it brings me back. And I don't get too overwhelmed.
Everyone needs that balance, don't they? Matt, talking about your career, what's on your bucket list?
In terms of sport or
outside sport, both?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I've obviously got those sporting goals that probably people could guess. But yeah, like I'd love to be able to balance, some teaching, like going to a school once a week and have a elite athlete program there or something, as well as being the best athlete I can be as well. Like still doing the IronMan Series, still doing Molokai to Oahu, and I just keep following these little loves of mine, and they all seem to work out. And you balance, you work hard, but they work out. So I think I'll just keep going through that, and I'll keep ticking my bucket list as it goes.
And mate, anything outside of the teaching dreams and obviously the professional Ironman dreams, bigger picture?
I really want to travel. I still haven't done much of that yet. Yeah, I went to Worlds in France and enjoyed a bit of Spain and Barcelona, but I really want to do, South Croatia and do a bit of South America, and I've still got a bit of a travel bug, but I love doing it when I'm racing. So at the moment, I'm ticking them away as I go, but I'm pretty keen to travel.
I have to take the Nutri-Grain Series to South America then.
Yeah, did you hear that, Nutri-Grain?
What's one bit of training advice, Matt, you would give to listeners from all your years of learnings thus far? If you could boil it down to one solitary piece of advice, what's Matt Bevilacqua going to be?
You've just got to enjoy it, no matter how hard it gets, you do have to enjoy it. And I think if you don't, there's sort of no point. So, there's all these kids that come up to Curra at the moment, and we've got a couple of SA kids grinding away, and they're going really well, and they're enjoying it. You can tell that's when you'll have those athletes that really do make it, is when they enjoy the grind rather than they're just fighting. They're getting sick and they're like, I don't want to do this. And when you sort of see them just keep coming back, they're quietly going about it. They're not too over enthusiastic, or they're just enjoying what they're doing. And I think that's when the results will come. They might not be there in the next 2 years, they might be there in 4, but yeah,
enjoying it, so critical. Matt, every guest of the program issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. It can be entry level or it can be extremely difficult. What's Matt Bevilacqua going to be for listeners?
That's a tough one. Well, can it be anything?
It can be anything.
Well, we did the as part of Deep Water, it was a Nutri-Grain project we ran in California. 6 of us went and did some crazy challenges over there. We had to do the Murph challenge, which is a CrossFit challenge of 100 chins, 200 push-ups, 300 squats into an Ironman race. So I think if you can work into that and maybe like do a bit of gym before you do your Ironman sessions under fatigues, good training, and work up to being able to finish that, you'd be pretty good. And
so it was 100, because I think Kai might have dropped this one in previously on an episode, but
he
I don't
would
think
have,
anyone was crazy enough to take it on.
Thing ever. Yeah.
So
really? Yeah. Right.
So this time, if you're listening, listeners, take it on. Even if you're not into Ironman, do the first bit, the Murph challenge, 100 pull-ups or chins. what was the next
200 push-ups.
200 push-ups.
300 squats.
300 squats, and then go do something. And that's just taking as long as you need to get those individual legs done.
Yeah, we didn't. We were racing, but we had kilometre soft sound transitions between each exercise.
Each one,
yeah. That's funny. He brought it up. I remember before we got dropped with that one. Well, we got dropped with it, and we had to think about it for a bit. And Kai was, we were just sort of thinking, we can't do this kind of thing. I suppose that must just jump out as the biggest test I've ever had,
And the Murph Challenge, all right, we'll tag that up, listeners.
Yeah.
Matt, fun question to bring this in, and that is 3 people at your dinner table, living or past. Who's at Matt Bevilacqua's dinner table, and why are they there?
I've still never met Joe Watson, so I have to put him in there, especially after his New York story about leaving AFL just to become a coffee for his band, his year band. That was pretty amazing. Put Donald Trump on there. That'd be amazing to talk to. He's crazy. I've been following a bit of that lately.
Joe Watson, Donald Trump.
I'll put Kelly Slater on there. That'd be funny. That's a great mix of people, actually. It'd be very interesting.
Slater. Why do you want Kelly on the table?
Just to pick his brain on a few things as well. Watch him talk with Trump. That'd be very weird. The most opposite people ever. But he's obviously someone I've always loved to meet and have a chat with. But I think everyone does.
Mate, anyone you'd like to thank? I mean, you've got some good sponsors, good supporters.
Yeah, I think I've named a lot of them, actually. I've got, Caro at the moment that are obviously they're perfect for this timing of my career, and me and Pulley as well. We've got such a good squad around us, and Barry and Crilly coaching, that they're just perfect at the moment. It's going really well, obviously. Winning Nutri-Grain Series titles, not a bad little effort. So I've got to thank them, and the training we do for Molokai, we get driven up and down the coast for hours because we paddle back, and Baz has got all our boards in the bus and driving us around. It's very lucky to have them, and just my family that always making sacrifices to, I'm always pushing myself to be more stressed than ever, and that they cop a lot of phone calls. So they're always, my brother as well, he's always backing me up. And
Younger or older brother?
Younger brother. Yeah, he's good. He's a Bondi lifeguard down in Sydney. So I lean on family a lot, and friends as well. So I think that's it.
Matt, you're also a bit of a budding comedian. Some of the Instagram work that Matt Poole and yourself do, I rarely laugh out loud, but I find myself laughing out loud more often than not if I look at your stuff. Where does that come from?
I don't know. If you want a comedian, Joel's the one. My little brother, I get it off him, but we have some pretty funny times. Obviously, 6 years living together doing some stupid stuff. It's pretty fun. We enjoy it, and Instagram story is good to reveal it all, but we don't reveal everything. The actual funny stuff we probably shouldn't post. So, we've had some good stories traveling the world around the way, and it's a good time. Awesome. It's a good life.
And talking about your social handles, where can listeners find you and follow your journey, Matt?
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything's just Matt Bevilacqua, if you can spell that, but you'll figure it out.
Or just Bevy.
I should just change him to Bevy, B-V-Y. It'd be a bit easier.
Matt, all the best, mate, for the season to come. We're recording this in the month of late August, so mate, all the best for the season ahead, and mate, no doubt with the work ethic you've got and that Tassie toughness, that there's some great things on the horizon.
Awesome, thanks Brad, cheers for having me.
In, Matt.
Cheers.
So, listeners, there you have it. Another episode of the Physical Performance Show. I hope you enjoyed Bevy sharing around all things surf lifesaving. And he's a great guy. Jump over and let us know if you enjoyed the episode, and be sure to tag Matt in. We'd both appreciate that. If you'd like to have the podcast automatically dropped into your device each week, you can simply do that by hitting subscribe from within the app of your choice. A massive thank you, as always, to the good folk who make this show possible. Daryl Misson, audio extraordinaire, Susan Wilkin, and of course now Sophie Walker at Pogo Physio. Coming up, guys, next week on the Physical Performance Show, I catch up with a true sporting icon, Mr. Bernard Lagat. Bernard's introduction could take another 5 minutes. However, in keeping it brief, let me just introduce Bernard by saying Bernard's a 5 times Olympian, most recently at the Rio Olympic Games, where he represented the US in the 5,000 metres at 41 years of age. He is a dual Olympic medalist, silver medalist in Athens, bronze medalist in Sydney in the 1,500 metres. He is the second fastest man ever to run 1,500 metres behind the world record holder and enduring legend of Hisham El Garouj. He is also one of the pace runners from the recent Nike break-in 2-hour attempt, and we speak about that in the interview. And Bernard is a dual world champion, winning the 1,500 and 5,000 metres at the 2007 World Athletics Championships. He's a 13 times international medalist. He has more records than I can rattle off. So you're going to have to tune in next week to a very special athlete, Bernard Lagat, or Kip as he's affectionately known, sharing around all things running. Listeners, until next week, you know what to do. Keep performing at your physical best and pursuing it. And until then, I'm Brad Deere, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.